Hey guys, my name is Joanna, also known as JustAnotherFlutist here on YouTube, and I have partnered up with the Flute Center of New York to bring you guys monthly flute review videos. But before we jump into the review, I need to let you guys know about a couple of perks that you can get using my code JAF when you order a flute through the Flute Center of New York. Number one, you get free domestic shipping within the US. Number two, you get an extended 10-day trial, usually it's only 7 days. Number three, you get an extended 18-month warranty on your new flute. And number four, you can take up to 3 instruments out on trial at a time. Just to be completely transparent, I do earn a small commission on each flute that is purchased through the Flute Center of New York using my code JAF. In terms of trials, all you have to do is contact the Flute Center of New York directly via email or phone. I will put a link to their contact info in the info box below. Be sure to give them the code JAF so you can get all the perks too. If you do take flutes out on trial, just be sure that you are actually in the market to buy. The Flute Center of New York does price match any other authorized dealer, so you'll always know you're getting the best bang for your buck. When trying flutes, be sure to take off all rings and dangly jewelry that can potentially scratch the flute. Never use the polishing cloth, the cleaning rod, or the swabbing gauze that comes with each new flute because they are not yours yet. And a quick disclaimer, every flutist plays each flute differently. Like in Harry Potter, just as the wand chooses the wizard, so the flute chooses the flutist. I'm just here to describe to the best of my ability how these flutes like to be played. It's up to you to decide which flute actually matches you. So with all that said and done, let's jump right into the review. Today we'll be reviewing the Gemeinhardt Intermediate Flute Model 3SHB and the Gemeinhardt Professional Flute Model 33SHB. Now you'll notice that in this video I'm calling them the 30SHB and 33 OSHB. The O simply means that these flutes sport to the offset G instead of the inline G. The 30SHB that we'll be looking at today sports the NG1 head joint cut. If you want to learn more about the Gemeinhardt head joints, I will put a link to that in the info box below for you guys to check out. The 33OSHB that we'll be trying today sports the Galway Crusader C1 head joint. This is a nice segue into our fun fact of the day. Sir James Galway and Gemeinhardt collaborated to create a super high quality intermediate flute. The main thing that really upgrades an intermediate flute from a student model flute is the head joint. So with Sir James Galway's permission, Gemeinhardt actually took his Albert Cooper head joint that he won his Berlin Philharmonic job on, and they made a machine specifically to replicate this head joint down to a T. Gemeinhardt completely reinvented and retooled their process of making head joints. Like no one else in the flute world is making head joints the way they do. Julian Rose, who's one of the Flute Center of New York staff, he's one of the people that I work very close with in the making of these videos. He saw these machines in person and Gemeinhardt wouldn't even let him take pictures of it. That's how top secret they are. These machines are super precise, so these replicas of James Galway's Albert Cooper head joint are extremely accurate. In this fashion, they are able to have crazy quality control over their head joints, which is Galway approved. And so now we have the Galway Crusader models, which is exactly what we're looking at. It's the Galway Crusader head joint with a 33SHB flute. If you're wondering what all the numbers and letters mean, I'm going to put it in the blog post that will accompany this video, so go check that out if you are interested. In case you're wondering who Albert Cooper is, I will also put a link in the info box below. He is a huge part of flute making history. Before I forget, let's go over the specs of these flutes. The Gemeinhardt 30SHB comes with a solid silver head joint. This particular head joint is called the NG1 head joint. They have another one called the J1 head joint, but we're not going to look at that one for today. Silver plated body and mechanism, French open hole model, Y arms, B-foot joint. The Gemeinhardt 33SHB comes with, as we said, the Galway Crusader C1 style head joint, silver plated body and mechanism, French open hole model, pointed key arms, and a B-foot joint. These flutes come in 2 different styled cases. The 3SHB comes in your very typical French model style case with your very typical white furry lining in here, and then you have a separate case inside. This case opens exactly the way French model cases usually open. You slide the buttons off to the side and then you can open the case. Comes with a black cleaning rod, a shoulder strap, a little baggie of plugs for your open holes in case you're not quite ready for them, or if your fingers just can't cover them. I actually legitimately know some people whose fingers cannot cover the hole, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. This is the warranty registration card. There's a tiny little pamphlet that gives you more information about your flute. This is basically like your FAQs. The Galway Crusader case I quite like because the zipper goes all the way down the side. When you're opening the case inside, on top of the outer cover on your lap, sometimes the whole case pops right out because the flap only opens so far. So this way is actually quite a bit safer. In this case, you'll find a beautiful mahogany cleaning rod. This guy is real fancy. Again, you'll find the warranty card and the FAQ. What's really interesting about this case I found is that the top is flat. Normally, it's round. The bottom is also unusually rectangular. My only warning is that fitting the flute inside of this case is actually quite tight. The plus side to that is that your flute will not fall out if you have this on your lap and you get knocked over a little bit. But the not so great side is that there is a specific way you need to put this back in. Put the body in, put the foot joint in. I find that it fits better if I angle in the outer end of the foot joint first, and then I pop the other end in on the inside. Then I do the same thing for the head joint. I angle the outer edge of the head joint in first, and then I pop in the head joint. If you do it that way, there's no problem putting this thing back in. Now, one quick first impression that I wanted to share with you guys was the shape of the lip plates. The NG1 head joint, it almost looks like everything's pinched in. So the front part of the lip plate, if you hold it up to the light, you can actually see it curving inward towards the hole. The other thing is that the sides of the lip plate actually taper upward, up into the hole basically. The Galway Crusader head joint is pretty straight right across over the top where the lip hole is. So I thought that was really, really interesting, and I was really curious to see how that would affect the sound, which I'm about to talk about. We'll start first with the 3SHB with the NG1 head joint. So, how do low notes like to be played? On this head joint, I find that you start to kind of really feel your air spinning from like around the middle of your mouth. Then it shoots to like your front teeth, and then it gets aimed downward. Now for higher notes, like let's say that you want to hit something like a C7, you will start to feel the air spinning and starting to shoot forward from way further back in your mouth. So I'm feeling something like around here. That's where it starts spinning, gets shot up to the same exact spot. And then because you are aiming for a higher note, your lips will actually direct the air higher than the lower notes. So I would say that the angle of the airstream is kind of like that. You really feel the air spinning right there. You feel it vibrating against your teeth. It starts to shoot from back here, but in terms of where the air is actually buzzing and vibrating against parts of your mouth, it's right there. I actually find that you need to push in and kind of give a little bit of structure to the sides of your lips. It's a little bit of like pulling it downward, but mostly inward. Almost like a pucker, you could say, but it's an interesting pucker. You have little muscles right there. Those are the muscles that you are engaging. As you can see, you cannot do this kind of manipulation of these particular muscles if you use a smiley embouchure, because if you're using a smiley embouchure, you end up going like that. And you pull the muscles outward and back against your teeth. Frowny embouchure, okay? Utmost importance. If you do not do this kind of really intense frowny embouchure and like actually puckering it inward a little bit, I find that the lowest notes either refuse to resonate or they don't come out altogether. I have also noticed that it's also a lot easier to crack them into a higher octave if you do not do this specific kind of embouchure. I found that you don't have to be so intense with your embouchure for the higher notes. They come out just fine. However, if you do use this frowning embouchure on the rest of the registers, your sound will just be so resonant. Lots of projection, very, very beautiful. So my takeaway from this is that I believe this head joint was built for you to be able to play higher notes extremely easily. Everything is curved and tapered inward toward the lip hole. The sides actually point upward like this. And on this side of the lip plate, you'll actually find that it's pushed inward. So it exposes this area here, the actual lip hole, quite a bit, which makes it way less resistant on the higher notes. Projection is like second nature to this head joint. You don't feel like you have to put a lot of effort into it at all. It just kind of does it for you. Now, because the air moves in this way in your mouth on this particular head joint, and the area of the spinning air is actually stationary regardless of which note you're playing, I have my suspicions that this makes it easier for smaller people to play this flute. I only have to worry about resonance and vibrations and the buzzing and the spinning, really just right there. That's really it. And now for harmonics. So this is my ultimate test to figure out how a flute actually likes to be played. In particular, if I can squeeze out the 7th harmonic, then that usually means I have pretty much mastered exactly how the flute likes to be played. On this flute, I was having a bit of trouble until I figured out the method of blowing into the flute that I just described to you guys. However, that 7th harmonic is still a little bit unreliable for me. I think it's because you're shooting the air from so far back in your mouth, and I only have so much mouth. If you do follow my suggestions in terms of how to blow into this flute, you'll find that your harmonics come out very reliably, very loud. They project really well, and they have a really lovely, naturally full tone. It's pretty darn impressive. And now for tone color. If you want a rich tone, you got to make sure you have a lot of space right here. Okay, you see how the tongue is tucked back here? You want it tucked all the way back so that you can make sure that the hollow behind your bottom front teeth is super, super open. The same way that you lift your soft palate, you can actually sort of move this portion of the hollow behind your bottom front teeth downward, regardless of where you're spinning the air, okay? Like there, and there. Underneath that, you need this space to be super open if you want your tone to be super rich. Now we're going to talk about how you get a thinner tone. Some of you may be wondering, when in the world would you want to use a thinner tone? It's mostly for effect. You don't always want to be playing with a super rich tone. Sometimes it doesn't work with the music that you're playing. You guys probably are already predicting that it has to do with this area here. The idea is that you want to basically thin out that whole area. In my head, I was just imagining that this part was coming upward like this. I almost feel like this whole area is just kind of getting cut off like that. My tongue was actually coming up like this and just sort of filling up that space. There's no real way to actually lift that hollow behind your bottom front teeth, so your tongue kind of does it for that. The tongue moving in there is more of a byproduct. What I said about tone color appears to work for all registers, which makes it very easy for students who are learning to play with tone color. You get the ability to control the tone color without it moving in crazy ways in your mouth. Now let's mess with the mechanism. The mechanism airs on the lighter side. This includes the trill keys and the B-flat lever. The nice part is that even though these keys are all very light, they don't bounce up like crazy. So it does help smooth out your technique. The gizmo key is actually slightly more resistant than I was expecting. Usually it's the flimsiest key, but here it's not. When you do actually use this key on the C7, it helps with both tuning and making that C way more open. And now for articulation. remember that the air spins right here. That means that you definitely cannot tongue literally right there, because if you do, you're basically obstructing that area that needs to be open for that spinning air to happen. The tongue then is hitting right there. I know, looks great, doesn't it? It's just where the top front teeth meets the roof of your mouth. Mostly on the roof of the mouth though. Now when you double tongue, you want to make sure that you don't swallow your K's on this. You want to make sure that your K's are somewhere around here. It's a very light K. The only kind of K sound you can make from hitting that part of your mouth is k, k, k. Your tongue then comes back here, hits this part, and then it goes back there. So the T is here, the K is here. If you go all the way down here, you'll end up with K. You want K, you don't want K. As long as you follow this type of tonguing on this flute, you will find that your articulation will be very light, very clean, and very clear. And lastly, dynamics. The idea is you want to widen your actual embouchure hole. There we go. Keep in mind that what I'm drawing here is more what it feels like than what it actually looks like. Let's say that normally your airstream is about this wide. When you play a forte, you want the airstream to be like this wide. When it comes out, the airstream flows like this. It's a pizza, okay? This head joint can take that much air going through it. So you can see this head joint is really built for projection. Now, how do you play piano? You make your actual embouchure hole smaller. It's more going inward from the sides than it is from the top and bottom. You know, I was saying that let's say your normal airstream is like this, your airstream is narrower inside of your mouth too. So your airstream is more something like this. Because you're starting with a narrower base, you end up with an airstream that is narrower coming out, something like this. So it is quite nice. You do get quite a range on this head joint. I quite like it. Now it's time to play with the 33SHB with the Galway Crusader head joint. You start shooting the air from back here. Very interesting. This is for all registers. Then you shoot it up to here. It bounces down to the hollow. It shoots up here in front of your top front teeth. Then it gets directed downward by your top lip. Your air spins not here. Your air is spinning in front of your top front teeth, which is exactly this point here where the air is shot right there. You really feel a lot of like buzzing vibrations, like the air is rushing like crazy between your top lip and your top front teeth. Now, the really even more interesting part is that for low notes, you raise this spinning air more upwards. It feels like it can be all the way up here. For higher notes, you move it downwards. It doesn't move very far. I would say it moves somewhere like down here. You have a lot of control over the registers this way then. There isn't much change between them, so it just kind of pops out. The other thing to look out for is this point and this point. Both of these points need to stay very, very open. And the way that you make it open is by lifting your soft palate. This area, as you can imagine, you will be hollowing out. Just think open. As long as you keep these 2 points really open, you can just concentrate here. This whole idea of keeping this part lifted, keeping this part hollowed out, forces your whole mouth to be extremely open. Very important to keep your tongue tucked away to allow for this to happen. This type of very forward, very open playing allows for a sound that projects very, very far and has a really naturally rich tone. And now for harmonics. that getting the harmonics out on the NG1 was already incredibly easy, but the Galway Crusader just takes it to another level. They come out extremely full and extremely loud. This way of playing already requires you to have the air spinning like crazy between your top lip and your top front teeth, so that area of your top lip is already receiving quite a bit more resistance than on other flutes. So if you can imagine, the higher you go, the more resistance there is there. It doesn't mean that it's hard to do it. In fact, this is actually a very easy way to control your sound. My biggest takeaway from this is that Sir James Galway must have lips of steel. Now for tone color. Tone color on this head joint concentrates on these areas. We're playing with the openness of your mouth now. If you want to play with a super rich tone, you gotta just make everything bigger. You will be lifting this up even more. You'll be hollowing this out even more. You want to widen your airstream too. Pretend that this is coming out at you. You want to widen everything out. Your whole airstream is now becoming super wide for a rich tone. For a thinner tone, as you can imagine, you will be doing the opposite of everything that we just talked about here. You will be pushing it inward. You will be pushing this inward as well, so your actual airstream is going to become narrower. This also gets pushed in. This area here also feels narrower, and of course a great way to do that is to use your tongue. Again though, you want to be careful that you don't just concentrate too much on the tongue itself. You want to think of this idea and your tongue will follow suit. Your tongue will end up kind of going like this. And now to mess around with the mechanism. The keys on the 33SHB feel just slightly more smooth and even than the 3SHB. They're also just a hair more resistant, which again helps even more with smoothing out your technique. The really nice part is that the Trill keys, the B-flat lever, and the gizmo all match the other main keys in the level of resistance. They feel exactly the same. It's very easy to control them exactly the way you want. You can predict exactly how they feel. And now for articulation. Let's review where that spinning air was. It was between our top lip and our top front teeth. Now you notice how far forward this spinning air is? That means that your tongue also has to follow suit. My tongue is doing what I call a pseudo French tonguing. Real French tonguing is when you're tonguing between your actual lips. So your tongue comes all the way out here. We're not doing that. We're doing a pseudo version of that. My tongue is pretty much resting against the back of my top front teeth with a bit of the bottom of my tongue sticking out underneath, if that makes sense. Again, you are looking for that ke. You do not want ka. No, we don't want this. This is what you want. Your tongue is gonna come from here, gonna come back here. It just comes back and forth like this. And if you do it this way, your double tonguing will still be very, very light, clean, and clear. And last but not least, dynamics. You are playing with the actual spinning air itself. The louder you go, the bigger that spinning air is. So like you're looking at something that feels like this. For piano, you will feel like that spinning air gets quite small. So it's like that. Both width and height. Right now what you're seeing is just the height, but know that it's also the width of it that gets smaller. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that it's so far forward in your mouth, so it is actually easier to control. If you do not use a frowny embouchure and you use a smiley embouchure, you're going to end up just smashing this whole space between your top lip and your top front teeth. This whole thing will not work if you use a smiley embouchure. The frowny embouchure allows for a lot of space between your top lip and your top front teeth. Universally, all flutes are much more easy to control using a frowny embouchure. And there you have it. That is my review of these beautiful Gemeinhardt flutes. I am honestly so impressed with the quality of these flutes. Gemeinhardt, you have stepped up your game like crazy. I've also heard tons of amazing stories about their wonderful customer support. I'm gonna be real honest here. If I had the money, I would probably buy the Galway Crusader model as my backup flute. And speaking of buying, let's talk about how much they cost. Did you like my segue? The base price of the 3SHB is $1,079. If you opt for the offset G, that does not add to the price. If you opt for the J1 head joint instead of the NG1 head joint, that also does not add to the price. However, if you wanted the NG1 head joint instead, that is an additional $90. There's also an option to get the split E mechanism, which is an additional $60. So the 3SHB flute model with the NG1 head joint that we looked at today costs a grand total of $1,169. Now the base price of the 33SHB is $1,479. Again, if you opt for the offset G, it does not add to the price. On the 33SHB, if you wanted the NG1 head joint, that does not add to the price. The NG1 is actually included with the 33SHB. However, if you want the Galway Crusader C1 style head joint, that is an additional $216. You also get the option of adding the split E mechanism, which is an additional $60. You can also add a C-sharp trill, which is an additional $200. And you can also add the D-sharp roller, which is an additional $120. So the 33OSHB with the Galway Crusader head joint that we looked at today comes out to a grand total of $1,695. If you ask me, these prices for this quality that you're getting is an absolute steal. And there you have it. I hope you guys really enjoyed this review. If you guys own a Gemeinhardt flute, I would love to know how you guys are enjoying it. Please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any requests for us to review other flutes, please also let us know in the comments below. Not only do I read them, but the Flute Center of New York reads them as well. Be sure to follow the Flute Center of New York on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I will put the link to their social media in the info box below. And as usual, if you guys like this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up and hit subscribe for new videos every Saturday. My last video is over there. And if you want to catch me during the week, my social media networks are down there. But otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Bye. As a side note, when I was trying out this flute and I figured all of this out, I went and I played the Lord of the Rings When in Dreams theme. It's basically the Hobbiton theme. Sir James Galway was the one who actually recorded that for, I believe, The Return of the King. I played it and holy crap, it sounds like James Galway. So it's no joke. This head joint is really an exact replica of one of Sir James Galway's head joints.